Martin Rooney. I feel like I need to say it like you're entering the arena. Martin Rooney, welcome to Suit Up the podcast.
Hey, my pleasure, Terrence. And for everybody listening, we were just offline talking for so long, getting so fired up. Terrence finally said, dude, I have to push record. We're missing all the good stuff. So if you stick with us for this podcast, I promise you're gonna walk away with something, whether it's about writing, whether it's about fitness, whether it's about getting a little more motivated. I am ready to blow everybody's mind.
Well, okay, just like the back. So, those of people that are not watching us on YouTube, A, go to YouTube, subscribe, all the things. But your background is like the moment I saw it, I'm like, this is the most interesting man in the world. You've got Guinness World Book records hanging behind you. You've got a bobsled poster, map of the world, you've trophies. Like, tell me about this. Like,
Okay.
especially, I have to know about, you said that that's an Irish what stick?
Hurling. So the sport
Hurling
is
stick.
hurling.
Do
Well,
describe what is Irish hurling?
yeah, well, I'm going to try to give everybody what do they call it? The down and dirty in less than
Yes.
30. And here's a quick story. So, hey, everybody, I want to introduce myself. My name is Martin Rooney, originally from New Jersey, right outside of New York City, where I think a lot of things happen. I went to college in the South, and I was a Division I track and field athlete. Went to the Medical University of South Carolina, became an orthopedic therapist. But in that time, I made the U.S. bobsled team, which should make perfect sense, right?
1 to
Then I
1.
traveled the world, fell in love with fitness and high level sport. And when I realized physical therapy wasn't for me, I started traveling the world trying to find out more about fitness and exercise and sport, which is what I loved, right?
Hmm.
Passion. And that led me, I was on a plane and I meet this guy named Bill Parisi. He was starting a company that was only sports performance. It hadn't existed in the United States. I left my job, went to work with him, and that led to some of the greatest adventures of my life. I became a speed coach in the NFL. I was a coach to UFC champions. I worked with endless sports teams, but I started writing. I was
Hmm.
asked to write article after article and then blog. And then those blogs and articles turned into a self-published book. That self-published book, then I got a call from HarperCollins one day. I didn't even tell you this, Terrence. I get a call from HarperCollins. They said, come on down. We want to meet you. I said, who are you? I don't even meet you for what? So I go, and this book about fighting is on their desk. And they said, dude, do you want to do this one for real? Because this thing is selling so hot. We want to go big. So I call my buddy. I don't know what to do. I call my buddy who's an NFL agent. I said, they want to give me some money to write this book. What do I say? And he said, what do you say? You say yes. He said, you say yes right now because you're nobody. And I wrote that book. That was called Training for Warriors, and
Hmm.
it became a passport around the
Hmm.
world. Then I was presenting around the world, but I was writing more and more. I became a editorial council writer for Gracie Magazine. I was the main blogger for Men's Health, and I fell in love with the craft of writing. And
Hmm.
then over years, there would be more books. I've done 12 books now,
Congratulations.
but never had I done one in thriller fiction. And
Hmm.
what I always wanted to, and it's what I love to read. And coming full circle, unfortunately, one of my best friends who was Olympic silver medalist, he ended up getting cancer. And I was trying to help him through the process. He was losing all this weight, radiation, chemo. And one day
Hmm.
he said to me, he said, hey man, look at this library they have here. You read so much. Can you give me a book? I'm losing my mind. And I
Hmm.
said, hey, instead of giving you somebody else's book, how about I write the one I always wanted to write and you see it chapter by chapter and you help me with it. And he loved it. It was a cathartic process. And a great news. First off, he beat cancer, and now he is
Woohoo!
the Jamaican bobsled team coach. And the Olympics are this winter in Cortina
Hmm.
d'Ampezzo, which is the same place that's on that poster right there where I was.
Awesome.
But the other crazy news is then I'm in New York City cornering the UFC. Jim Miller, who has the most fights, most wins in UFC history. I've trained him from the beginning. And that morning, he myself and Frankie Edgar, who was UFC champ, who I also worked with, we opened the New York Stock Exchange. And that day, I'm on a roll, right? So I said, hey man, I'm on a roll. I got this manuscript. I don't know what to do with it. I don't have an agent. I don't have a publisher. And I called the only person I knew in the city. And I said, do you know somebody? And he said, I know one person that maybe you could ask. I asked that person and they bought it immediately. And that led to this book that that we are holding in our hands called Blood Feud. It came out 2 days ago officially. I'm super nervous, but I'm also super excited. And that is, that's a lot of the story. I'm sure more will come out, but the hurling stick, guys, that's a sport in Ireland. It's like their national sport. It's like a combination of ice hockey, but on the grass, lacrosse, but you don't catch the ball, you whack it. And then
Oh,
Australian rules football, where it's super violent. And they play that like crazy. And I was presenting in Belfast, Northern Ireland, and they made me this custom stick with my name on it, my face on it, and was really, really cool. So that, so of many of the things that are here in my office, that's one of them that I had to put up.
Rooney is an Irish name, isn't it?
Yes, yes. So grandfather from Ireland, who very interesting. Watch this. He was a boxer, but he was also a teacher, and he was fluent in Latin and Greek. And
What?
yeah, and then my other grandfather was the town editor for what was called the Ocean County Sun in New Jersey. So, and then my dad's sister wrote a number of novels. So, what I'd like to say is somehow in there, the blood that
Yes.
courses through my veins,
Hmm.
there was also some writing in there too, and which also made me nervous because all of these family members, they are really tough editors because they're the only people that read my stuff when I would put it out there. So, yeah, like between my dad, my cousin, like there's a couple people that they read it and they like rip me to shreds, which actually helps me, which is good.
Yes. Okay, that is amazing. There's a quote from one of the Sherlock Holmes books that I absolutely adore. People are probably tired of hearing me say it on the show, but art in the blood takes many strange forms. And that is, I think, something that carries through in virtually any discipline. One of the things that you have going for you is fitness and writing. I think that there's more actually that cross over in those disciplines than not, whether it's fiction or nonfiction. The ability to put yourself in a situation where it's you are training for the event, you are training for the thing. There's a book I absolutely adore called The Alter Ego Effect by Todd Herman. He's
Hmm.
a sports performance coach, and a lot of his ideas are related to the idea of field of play. What is your field of play that you're trying to achieve? And then taking those steps towards it.
Yeah, I love it. And I would agree 100% where when I attacked this book, I think a great thing you could say, it's interesting. My uncle, and I've got some really interesting uncles too. So, one uncle of mine, he just recently passed away, but he was the commandant of the Air Force Academy. But another uncle of mine graduated West Point, actually taught at West Point, and then did, tons of work with NASA and Boeing.
Hmm.
And we were just together recently, and he, learned about the book, and he said, "Do you know why you did the book?" And you know what he said?
What?
He said, "You did the book because that's a function of your training. It's a product
Hmm.
of your You've been
Yes.
training for this forever. Your discipline, your
Hmm.
commitment, your ability to take on a task and follow
Hmm.
it through, which whether I applied that in athletics, whether I applied that with my own athletes, but it
Hmm.
is what I did. Like I took it as here's this challenge and I could see the
Hmm.
beginning and the end. And
Hmm.
it became, I think we all, Terrence, are always, like you said, you love lifting, you love
Hmm.
training. We all need something. We have to have this event. And
Yes.
tough for me is mine were always so physical, right? Always so
Hmm.
physical. But as I'm
Yes.
getting older,
Hmm.
that's fickle too. Like, because if that's your only
Hmm.
identity, eventually that stuff, it betrays you, right? Like I
Which,
can no longer do the things I once did when I was 20, but yet in the writing, I
hmm.
could still do it and make it come out. And I hope I did that this time.
Well, that's one of the things I admire about Lee Cain as a character. So the main character of Blood Feud is it's very typical that when a thriller comes out, the main character is that perpetually in his mid 30s, and
Yeah.
that even if like to Brad Thor's credit, he is letting Scott Hartbath age, but usually it's with the coda, but he could still like outperform dudes like 20 years younger than him, and that age just keeps like getting longer and longer.
I know exactly where you're going to watch. I'll even say this. When I wrote it, and we both talked offline. For everybody listening, hey, I have read thousands of books. Thousands. I'm over 2,000 books now. Now you might say, "Oh, how
Congratulations.
did you do that? How did you do that?" Well, 120 books a year for the last 25 years. That's how you do that, right?
Yeah.
Only accelerating as I get older. So I have read them all, and this book, Blood Feud, is a product of I wanted to remove the cliches, right?
Hmm.
So, and it's interesting. You ready for this? Do you want to know how I got the book deal? Here's a great story. You ready?
Yeah.
When I did talk to the publisher, he goes, "Let me guess. Is he a 30-year-old ex-CIA, ex-FBI, ex-Special Forces, military guy or detective that is has some problems and now he saves the world?" And I said, "No. You know who my guy is? My guy's the guy that kills those guys." And he's like, "Ooh, I'm listening." And it
Hmm.
was, right? Like my guy
Yeah.
is this authentic real guy. He's in his 40s.
Hmm.
He makes a lot of mistakes. He's very conflicted. He is not ex-military. He does
Hmm.
not have special training. And you're going to love this line. You ready? You know why?
Why?
Because I've trained the toughest people on earth, and the toughest person on earth can come from anywhere.
Yes.
And I've worked with the Army Rangers. I've worked with the Navy SEALs. That
Hmm.
doesn't mean you're tougher than everybody else.
It's not
They've
just an automatic
like they've got
badass
all this
stamp.
like tech, or they have these weapons or these other things. But if you notice, like, hey, some of the most famous gladiators on the planet, none of them have that background. Now, that doesn't
Hmm.
mean you can't. But
Hmm.
here's what's also interesting, and hey, maybe you'll like this. And again, this is never calling out anyone else.
Yeah.
But are you ready for this? I'm not a Navy SEAL, so I'm not going to write about one. I am
Yes.
not. I am not in the FBI, so I'm not going to write like I am. I do
Hmm.
not understand the CIA or police detective work.
Hmm.
So I didn't create that guy. I made the guy that I know, because what I've always learned, I think you can only write what you know, right?
Hmm.
And other stuff is guessing. For instance, again, Reacher is on fire right now, and the show I think is getting it back, and hopefully it's
Hmm.
creating more readers, and that's awesome. But I don't know if anybody knows, but like Lee Child is from England and is
Yes.
not, is not only not American, but wasn't in the American military or an MP. And that doesn't mean you can't do your research, and it doesn't mean you can't write about a guy. Because remember,
Hmm.
we're going on fantasy, right?
Yeah,
Harry
we're
Potter.
making stuff up.
Yeah, Harry Potter's not real either. But what I'm getting at is, at least for myself, I
Hmm.
wanted to write what I knew. I
Hmm.
wanted to make it authentic and raw, from
Hmm.
whether it was the way they talked to the way they fought to what makes him tick right
Hmm.
inside. And I really feel that is what's catching people, because of what you originally said. It's that cliched 30-year-old oh, this is the other part. And every character now, they make them so not so
It's the
damaged
it's the same
or
issue with Superman the Man of Steel. I don't
yeah,
need to spend I love Henry Cavill as an actor, but I did not need to spend 2 hours of him going, do I want to be Superman or do I not want
yeah,
to be
yeah, like
Superman?
yeah,
That's
and I
not
agree.
Superman.
Not only that, yeah, like the first few Supermans, it's like he's weaker than everybody. I don't enjoy it, right? So hey, this
Hmm.
guy, I give you the hero that I want, and I like it to conflict people where you're like, man, I want to be like that, but man, this code he follows,
Hmm.
I know I can't
Oh,
be
it's violent.
that.
But I think that's part of, again, what makes it not only a thrilling story, but also it adds to the arc in the same sense that, like, I would compare it to, we enjoy the violence of John Wick in a lot of
Yeah,
senses,
yeah,
because the revenge that it is justifies a degree of reaction within his capacity.
yeah. And we all
And
have that in
Lee Cain
common.
does the same thing in this
Oh, yeah.
story, where you
Well,
set the stakes so high that it is 100% hits the justification level of, yeah, he's just gonna mow people down. Not with like the little machine gun. He is literally going to beat the living
oh yeah.
shit out of whoever's
Well, and
standing in his way.
that's something you'll notice too about cliche. Another thing, and again, these are my pet peeves, and I'm allowed to have them as a reader.
Yes.
I don't need to read 5 pages on the details of a gun or the
Yes.
caliber of a bullet.
Hmm.
And I think it's boring, but I also think it's that person did so much research in it, because it's not what they know, that now they had to show you how much research they
Hmm.
did. But a lot of times it's not relative, because then that same author has the lead character, we talked about it, get shot, and then they're okay. Where as a physical therapist and really understanding the human body, I think that also makes it, guys, somebody blows a hole in you, you're not one continuing to fight or just putting your hand on it and it clots up and you're okay. But again, it's fantasy. It takes you for the ride.
It's
Look at
not
John.
Jesse Ventura standing there going, I don't got time to bleed.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's just, hey, it's funny you say that too. Predator, 80s action thriller.
Ooh,
I
yeah.
feel, and that is what I grew up on. That's how I was raised. I feel like I want Lee Cain to be that guy for now. I think the world is ready for a guy like this
Hmm.
again because I don't think we have those same types of heroes
No,
anymore.
we really don't. Like the what the Schwarzenegger Stallone style hero isn't
And
in
that
vogue. And
and
this
that's
guy
what
is
I want.
100%. Like I genuinely feel like if I'm thinking through mental casting, like a prime Stallone
Yep.
is Lee Cain.
Oh, well, it could have been any of them. Like what I thought about too. Yeah, who was I thinking? There was, or it could have even been a. But it would have been the accent would have been tough, but a prime Dolph Lundgren too.
Ooh,
Blonde hair,
yes.
tall. Because my buddy, who this, I used as
Hmm.
part of the character, he is like 6'4", 240.
Oh.
Like he is that real thing.
Hmm.
Because you also see that a lot. A lot of these, every guy is the same size or the same stuff. And the for everybody listening, and I don't want to give away this story, and I won't, but he has cancer, right? And
Hmm.
I don't know of a hero
Yeah.
that has that, but my
Well,
buddy did. We went through it.
it's so fantastic because so just I mean it's the first part of the book. First chapter, opening hook is a hitman has been sent to kill a man that has cancer and he's like, "What the chuck?
What am
What's
I
the
doing?
point of this?" And
Why?
that the first 30 pages, it sells the story and the premise. And what I enjoy is for when a book starts getting big, bombastic, and pulpy, you can't start there. You have to inch, and you do such a great job of the progression of the action going from this is a good hook, this is a good question, we get answers to those questions, and that's as we get to the halfway part, the book starts to slide up, and it's like, oh, I am in for the ride.
Well, what's hey, for everybody listening too, Terrence is like the first person I'm actually discussing the book with. It just came out. I obviously know now he has read it because the things that he's saying, he couldn't have said those if he hadn't. And it's getting me even more excited because speaking of that as an author, and I hope everybody understands, when you put your art out there, it's scary, right? Like I'm afraid to look at Amazon or what will people think or what will people say or did it stack up or do I have the goods? And I think as an artist, you have to have a very thick skin, but
Hmm.
no matter how much you say that, it's still so tough.
Hmm.
And all the things you said, I do believe that. Like I believe like it gets you hooked in. I wanted to move fast and furious
Hmm.
so that it gets people reading again.
Hmm.
Where, hey, some of my favorite authors, I love Stephen King, but I knew, hey, some of his books, when you pick them up and they're 700, 800, 1,000
Yes.
pages,
Oh no.
that's a commitment and maybe so hard for somebody that can't get going. Where I wanted to find the right
Hmm.
pace, give them enough to leave them hungry for more, but at the same time that they feel like they accomplished. Like I always get this feeling of accomplishment every book I finish.
Perfect length. I'm just gonna tell you now, there are certain like things that anytime someone talks to me about their book, I'm like, okay, is this a book I want to commit to?
Hmm.
I don't commit to every book. If it's the first 30 pages, don't hold me. That's the first question. Second question is, if it's over 300 pages, I have to really like it. Your
Yeah.
book, I can't remember the page count, but it's not
We're
too
right at
long.
like 288. We're right
Yeah,
at like I wanted to stay under three.
this is
And that
perfect length.
and you're exactly we think the same where there's just some of my favorite writers, but also I feel like I finished something where
Yes.
one of the worst feelings in the world is even when you're enjoying a book, but it's 700 pages and you got 300 in and life gets in the way and you don't
Hmm.
finish it, right? And it almost it gives you it defeats you versus keeps you moving. And as you know, this book leaves you enough of a cliffhanger where
Hmm.
there are some reviews coming in now. Best thriller books left a couple, and
Sweet.
both said I can't wait till book two,
Hmm.
and which, by the way, book two is already written.
Yes.
So now meaning manuscript or
Hmm.
draft. That doesn't mean I've gotta prove I can move this. So for anybody listening, you will really help me out by buying a
Yes.
copy, so that that book two will come out.
Let
But
me
I am
pitch here. Blood Feud Raising Cain is the visceral, violent, excellent action thriller that you desperately want from a character a character in a story that you do not get when you just grab the shelf at Barnes and Noble atypically. This is a unique story and an enjoyable one.
I love it. Well, hey, so not only was that a great ad, we'll have to take that sound bite and post it. But it's so funny what you're saying too, that sometimes they say in business, at least, and I've been involved in multiple businesses, that sometimes a fresh set of eyes is the best set of eyes, right? I
Hmm.
haven't been poisoned yet or gotten lazy, or
Hmm.
it's almost, I tried to write the thing that excited me the most with no fear, and I just went and did it, and we
Hmm.
talked about that, like all the things you were saying, you did this and you did that.
Hmm.
I was just writing it. Yes,
Hmm.
it does those things, but it wasn't, I didn't start out and say, I'm going to do all these things and then,
Hmm.
fill the box.
Well,
And
and just
what's
cards on the table. When I first read character has cancer, there's always that part of me goes, "Oh, I hope that this isn't bad," because it's a touchy subject for a lot of people. So
Yeah,
done poorly, it can be awful. But I never felt like you exploited or disrespected the pain that people
yeah,
go through with that. And you did such a great job of being sensitive to it, while at the same token, this is an action thriller
yeah.
that
Well,
handles the topic of cancer in a very human way, which I think is a lovely combination that isn't atypical.
and here's a little more of my backstory. So my mother, we say, and that quote, I guess, if it is by Arthur Conan Doyle, I forgot to mention that was my grandfather, who was the guy that was the Latin and Greek guy, his favorite author. So
Oh,
that's really,
really? I mean,
if you like Sherlock Holmes too, so much where so there's a little full circle there. But you know how I gave you the writing side? Well, my mom was a physical education teacher and a coach,
hmm.
and her master's in health sciences. And she had a few best friends pass away of cancer in the 80s,
Hmm.
before there was ever a pink ribbon, before there was ever
Yeah.
a run. And she came home one night and she was crying, watching her friend just, her
Hmm.
demise. And she said, there has to be something better than this. And
Hmm.
my mom opened a company. She became a lymphedema specialist,
Hmm.
a breast prosthetist, a wig specialist, massage
Hmm.
therapist. She hired all these women, got all this special
Oh,
clothing,
that's so
and
cool.
opened her own business called the Women's Internal Support Environment, WISE Center. She did it for 25 years, essentially pro bono, because it was so new.
Hmm.
Medicare, Medicaid, they didn't even know how to cover this stuff.
Yeah.
But she made such a difference, but it was only for women with cancer. So, do you see how there is this weird piece that I was very close to it
Yes.
and was super respectful of it? So, yeah. So, for anybody listening, I think cancer affects all of us. I would have never wrote the book if my buddy didn't have it.
Hmm.
And uh, but I think because it affects all of us and how we do it, yeah, it's never made light of, and it does show the battle. And remember, it is what fuels his ultimate
Yes.
fire,
Exactly.
because he knows what people are going through, and maybe they don't have to, right? Like that's
Hmm.
one of the little conspiracies in there that you start to see gets bigger and bigger. So, and all of that, that was the fun part of the story
Hmm.
where, hey, I'll tell you this. I'll give you this. One of my, we were sitting there, my buddy and I, as we were going through this, and he was suffering. He was
Hmm.
suffering. He got him over 100 pounds. He
Ugh.
was weak, but he was starving it out of himself. He was going on
Yes.
30 steps. And remember, all this stuff is detailed in there, which is very
Yes.
interesting. And I remember saying to him as a joke, I said, dude, imagine if they had a cure to this thing and they weren't giving it to anybody. What would you do? And my buddy's like, dude, I would kill everybody. I would kill them all. Right.
Hmm.
And do you see how these were all little
Hmm.
things, origins of this
Hmm.
character and the origins of the story, that it was really fun to build as well. But then it did really, it took a life on of its own. And yet people that have read it say, man, this could be real, or this could
Hmm.
be. So there is some type of connection there too. Going back with hey, everybody is connected in some way to cancer.
Hmm.
Everybody's connected to a little conspiracy ideas of,
Hmm.
what is out there or isn't out there. And I think this book plays perfectly off of
Hmm.
all.
It really does. And it threads the needle in being a good book, being a good thriller, being just pulpy enough without being too far. And the other thing, I just had to shout this out because I love it. I believe I give like huge kudos to when authors find ways to include a sword fight in their book. And I don't want to spoil the context of how the sword fight happens. I'm just going to
Remember,
say,
I sent you that
readers,
back, you know.
yes.
Well, and hey, and that scene, I could just see if like Quentin Tarantino or Guy Ritchie got a
Hmm.
hold of this as some type of script. Like again, I hope those that was one of the ones that was the hardest to write because that character I really connected with that guy,
Yeah.
and I so my history I did train at the New York Athletic Club. I knew all the guys that had transitioned from certain combat arts to the fencing and the other stuff, and so
Hmm.
how elite that was and what it was. So these are all things I have a lot of experience around. But what I love, you and I know the thing. What I love is how those guys think they're there to get him. He locks them in. He locks them to take them out. And I just this vision of throwing Vivaldi on and just
Yes.
getting in the zone
It
as
was
if
so
this,
cinematic.
yeah, that's what I mean. And like this is his athletic event. Like I could just feel it when I was writing it, and the rage of these people dare to come for him. Now they're gonna pay. So and it is, I'm telling you, Terrence, it kind of, when I was going, it wrote itself, meaning,
Hmm.
do you see how it was this natural progression that he used the
Hmm.
fencing to kind of, remember that
Yes.
character was trying to break into the elite.
Hmm.
He was trying, that was it. You notice it's interesting. Every one of the characters, when people describe the book, they all say it's a survival story. So book one
Yes.
is a survival story, but it's
Hmm.
these origin stories of these people who
Hmm.
are and it's the way they all survived or what drove them. So you see
Hmm.
how currently Lee, maybe it's saving himself from cancer is driving him, but you find out who he was.
Hmm.
The character we were just talking about, and I don't want to give away too much, but you see how his thing was, I don't want to be a blue collar guy. I
Yeah.
want to see how this other half lives, and I'm gonna crack the code, and I'm gonna figure out what it
Hmm.
takes, and I'm gonna find these. I call them crowbars. I'm gonna find these
Hmm.
little crowbars. I'm gonna leverage my way in. Ooh,
Hmm.
sport can get me to the Ivies. Ooh, now these Ivies, if I meet enough of them, I can get the network to here, and
Hmm.
now I have the network to there. What do I got to use? That gave him that skill, and I let him use it right when it counted the most. It was, yeah. So yeah, it really, but again, like we said, it's an 80s, it's an
Hmm.
80s movie, baby, that like is going. And I hope, yeah, I just hope people can feel it like I felt it when I was writing it. Like I remember
Hmm.
writing those and being like almost like, whoo, hey, am I going too crazy here? Or like, is this I'm like feeling it right now? So
Well, when you sent me the book, so sent me the PDF before the physical arrived, I devoured it. Like this
mm,
was a true page turner in the sense that normally when I'm reading a book for the podcast, I go, it's this many pages. I want to be fresh. I had the interview on this date, so let's like plot out how many pages per day. I wasn't managing the number of pages per day, and I was like, when I had to close it to go to bed, I'm like, darn it, what happens next? Which
well,
that's the best part of a good thriller is when it keeps you wanting that little more.
and I take that as the highest praise because again, I like I said, the fresh set of eyes. I don't know if I did it right or not, but I know what I like and I know
Hmm.
what I would love to read or what I would have. Same thing. Everything you just described is the book I want. I don't want to be bored or I don't need too much backstory or I don't
Hmm.
need too much detail that it
Hmm.
never moves.
Hmm.
And if you noticed, what I tried to do too, one thing I really love about certain books or writers is sometimes when they hit you with an idea. I'd like to describe it that I say it sticks to your ribs. You can't
Hmm.
forget or you don't let it go. Like you see how the sword fight was
Yes.
something for you like that. I tried almost every chapter to have
Hmm.
one of those things. Like, we'll throw out there. Maybe you remember the flaming shots from the thing,
Yes.
or the fight in Central Park, which I
Hmm.
which I wrote to
The,
really stick to
that
somebody who is.
okay, again, without spoiling, that was such a brutal smashdown, but you did such a great job of
I,
it's like
I was sweating when I
up
got done
to
writing.
it.
I was terrified when I got done writing it, but it was that pure rage that I needed it to come out. But you know what I mean is each chapter,
Hmm.
I wanted to. It's almost like being generous as a writer, where I think some maybe they give you one of those and it's the whole. You got to go the whole book to get it.
Yes.
I just want it to be like, man, holy cow, this happened. Whoa, holy cow! Remember the college thing, or then and what I do love. I love origin stories. When I
Hmm.
watch, I am a big superhero fan. I am a big,
Favorite superhero?
The Flash is my favorite.
Oh,
So,
good taste.
so Man, I have
Wait, which Flash? Wally West or Barry Allen?
Barry Allen. But watch
Okay.
this. Watch. I'll grab this. I only have certain special things. You're gonna like this. On my I have not only the Flash guy up here, but look at this. This is
Oh,
a one of so this is Flash ring,
yes.
Barry Allen ring with the suit inside. You can see it, it opens and closes. What number is this? This is trying to see the number. Oh, now I just dropped the ring. Yes, this is number 400 out of 1,000 that were only made.
That
Yeah, you
is
see
so
the ring.
cool.
The ring comes off too, and you know,
Yes.
so and yeah, maybe yeah, I guess I could say this. I have a Flash tattoo, so that is I won't say where it is, but we all got that in college. And remember, I was a track and field athlete.
Yeah,
I'm a speed trainer.
that
I I
matches.
train, my kids, my
Hmm.
daughter went to Notre Dame for track and field. My third daughter right now was just MVP of the team, which I coach. So speed, like I fell in love with the Flash when I was very young. My dad, maybe this is interesting too. Every Tuesday, he would bring home a comic for me.
Oh,
And
that's so
I guess
cool.
he was bringing me more DC, I guess, at first than Marvel. And I love both.
Hmm.
And you know what I would say to him every day when he would come home from work when I was like 5? I'd be like, "Is it Tuesday? Is it Tuesday? Is it Tuesday?" And yeah, and just the Flash. And then because I like that, he was always bringing me
Hmm.
the next Flash comic. And I had subscription for years when I was a kid, so I have so many editions.
I believe the
But
Flash is a largely underrated, like actual
yeah. Well, and
character.
I'll say this though, and then I think the latest
Oh,
movie,
yeah, no, 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 no,
they
no.
killed him where that is not my Barry Allen,
No, no.
So
Well,
I see it
just
yeah.
painful because the Flashpoint comic is only meaningful if you have the backstory of the
Yeah.
Flash. And when
Yeah.
you make Flashpoint the movie, it's like, oh no.
Yeah, they don't know it. I enjoyed the recent show. I even enjoyed the old one. Remember where
Wesley Snipe, not Wesley Snipes, John Wesley Snip, John
uh
Wesley, yeah, Ship.
name, but that was we would watch that when I
Hmm.
was in college every week. Remember, Mark Hamill was the Riddler in
Yeah,
that,
the Trickster.
or Trickster. And yeah, so I have, but I mean, I just have this vision of who the Flash is, the physique, the
Hmm.
build, what he looks like. But yeah, that was who I always connected with, just speed, explosiveness, energy, and really
Warner
again,
Brothers, hire
yeah.
this man to write
Yeah,
the
let me
definitive
do the next
Flash
Flash.
novel,
Come on.
please.
Don't make it a weak, neurotic, anxious guy. Like, so yeah, I was pretty disappointed when I left the theaters after that last one, to be honest. But interesting call, right? I guess some people maybe would have said something else, but and probably not a lot would have had shown the nerd ring that I have too. But but definitely and I think that shapes us, right? Like I
Hmm.
think I'm Gen X. I think, man, most guys growing up had comics or they
Hmm.
had a favorite hero.
Yeah.
Hey, every Saturday morning I was watching Super Friends and Flash was
Yes.
these were the DC guys.
Hmm.
So, definitely enjoyed them. But I will say this on the reverse. I just finished Daredevil, the latest series
Yes.
on
Born Again.
dude, dark, but I
Hmm.
loved it. Like
Hmm.
I have loved that entire thing. So I wish there was more of that where I think Marvel has gone, everything's jokes, everything
Yeah.
is
Everything has to be
comedy.
Guardians of the Galaxy, is
Yeah, I
really
don't
what
like
it
what they did
is.
with Thor. Like I loved the
No.
original Thor.
Yeah.
Next one was great. But now like Love and Thunder and it just starts they're all Guardians of the Galaxy jokes. Like this is like a god like and now it's we're making him a comedy where I'd love something to really get back to that. I just saw Thunderbolts.
Mm.
Okay, left me wanting.
Yeah.
Just here was the reason. Again, I said it to my kids because my kids are big Marvel fans. I got them into it. And they liked it. And I said, no one stood out as either the
Hmm.
lead or the hero you want to be,
Hmm.
or yeah, like something that I'm like, man, I want more of them,
Hmm.
and the villain also makes a movie too. And, it's getting harder, I guess, to find that, when Endgame finished, man, where do you go from there? And I think they're reaching, right? But
Hmm. Well, and that's
yeah,
a credit to your book with Blood Feud. You have strong heroes and villains. You have a villain that what I like is kind of like Thanos. You do a build to who the villain is in the story, and you do a good job of not making him he's over the top in a Bond villain way, but like Ian Fleming Bond villain.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that read so much like reading the original Thunderball or On Her
Mm.
Majesty's Secret Service,
Yeah.
where this is a Blofeld type character
And it's
who's
funny, and man, we're on such the same wavelength because that's how I see him now. For everybody listening, he's talking about Olivier, and
which again,
and
name choice even like
well,
Olivier, you're
well,
like
here's what's
instantly
crazy.
connotation Laurence Olivier, you're thinking of someone a little bit
Yeah.
more theatrical, a little more
Yeah,
serene.
it's just another level. It's where it goes. And here's what, again, what's interesting is, and man, when he hears about this, so one of my best buds in college was Olivier from France. And, so I base,
There are
you
some
know,
things there. I'm like, is there someone that he knows with
well,
this
you know what
name?
it is?
Yeah.
Remember, what do we say? Like, fact is better than fiction or
Yes.
true but what I'm saying is, I've always had these pictures of these characters who are people in my life that I love,
Mhm.
Now, hey, my buddy is not a villain, but,
hmm
but it gave me this person. And do you see how, hey, even though he's a villain,
hmm
what I tried to always conflict the reader again is that you could be on his side. What I
hmm
wanted to go for a little bit, using the Harry Potter analogy, it's kind of funny, like because my kids were so into that, and we would go. Some kids want to be Slytherin, right? Like
Yes.
some kids,
hmm
some kids are like, "Who are you?" I'm Slytherin, and it's like, okay, wow. Sometimes they can understand the evil side, or look at
hmm
the whole Cobra Kai
Yes.
thing, where they've
Yes. Oh,
really come
Cobra
full
Kai.
circle. Yeah, oh, it's so good. But yet what's really interesting is you start to read it, and it's like, wow, was Danielson the villain the whole time? Like, look,
hmm
it kind of was he cheating with an illegal move, and it wasn't fair. And look how Johnny's life was ruined. He's not the bad guy. You can't hate him, but ultimately, I think there's some of that. That
hmm
remember that guy's motivation.
hmm
That's the big hook of the story, which we won't give away, but I think it's something everybody wants. And you
hmm
can't blame him because if he had access to try to pull it off and
Yeah.
came from a scarred childhood with his old man, which I think everybody can understand, you can't blame this guy for what he's doing. But some might call him crazy. And then some, hey, there's people doing what
Yeah.
he's doing right now. So everything is based also in science, right? Like another writer I enjoy is Michael Crichton. So if anybody's
Yes.
listening, Michael Crichton had an influence on me because, hey, he was a medical doctor,
hmm
left that for writing. So you feel that in everything he writes. I can
hmm
see that when he was alive, he would probably attack a new concept that he was thinking about. Like, wow, DNA. And he would go on a run, and now you got Jurassic Park, right?
Yes.
Or wow, computers and what they're doing in disease. Now you got the Andromeda strain. Oh, wow. Or paleontology, now dragon teeth. And it's almost this book, you could almost say it's action thriller, but there's definitely techno thriller in
hmm
there. And book two is way more techno because then we really get into how they're doing it and what they're trying to do. So I definitely there's a nod to him in there too because these were the guys
hmm
I really liked writing also.
Michael Crichton, I think, is shockingly, despite the fact that he created some of the most iconic IP of the modern era, I think
ER, like people
as a
don't know that.
writer, he's underrated
Yeah.
because he was a brilliant thinker. He wrote incredible high concept stories. I've read Hard Case Crime. I'm a big fan of Hard Case Crime
Oh yeah,
Imprint,
yeah,
and
yeah.
they
Watch.
published some
Yeah,
of his
that's
early
fun.
works under a pseudonym, and it's still like this is leaps and bounds better than the average writer.
Oh yeah.
And that was him like writing in college, and I'm like,
You're ready.
sometimes,
I'm almost wrecking so in my office, I only keep some of the books I really love, right? Like, so this is like, I showed you already my library. This is the ones that inspire me that I keep about 100 around me. And yeah, like my hard case crimes,
there
but
we
look, these
go.
are three really cool ones.
hmm
That I got a lot from because Stephen King is one of my favorite authors.
Yes.
And yeah, so I am a big case of hard case. Watch this. See, we could be nerding out forever. Look at this that I just got.
Ooh,
So
the
I don't know if
anticipation.
you've heard. Yeah, let's see if you have. So Earl Stanley Gardner, he
Yes.
was known as, I think Perry Mason, he wrote all the Perry
Yep.
Mason books, but he was known as the highest selling author when he was alive of all
Yes.
time. Well, he wrote some other stuff as A. Fair was one of his pen names.
Yes.
Look at this. So I go all the time to antique bookstores. That's where I hang
Hmm.
out, bookstores, different things. And this is a that I just picked up. So it's a 1961 original
Ooh.
called the title just hooked me. It says Shills Can't Cash Chips. And I was like, oh, what's that? And then I looked into it. I'm like, oh my gosh, Earl Stanley Gardner, I've never heard of this. Well, I just looked. Hard Case Crime,
Yes,
it book just came out with it after 50 years of it being out of print. But I got the
you
original,
got the OG.
no book jacket, but that is on the top of my list that I'm going for next. So maybe for everybody listening, you see how Terrence and I, you know, are closet nerds about a lot of this stuff too. But I had to have it because when I then immediately Wikipedia'd him and it said, man,
Hmm.
he was the greatest selling author at the
Hmm.
time of his death. I said, well, then I got to read this guy. Just
Yeah.
like I read a lot of Agatha Christie, but
Hmm.
she's even so much older, but still, even a lot of her books are some of the greatest selling books of all time. And you take pieces away. I think the game has changed from 100 years
Yes.
with that, where in Blood Feud, it isn't making you guess and it isn't giving you red herrings all over the place.
But I
But
will give a good comparison to you and Agatha Christie. Both of
I,
you write
let's hear it.
clearly and concisely. The thing that makes Agatha Christie, I read a great biography on Agatha Christie like a year ago. Fascinating, just as a woman, she was interesting, and then wrote books, much like yourself. The Besides that comparison, there's also one of the things that makes Agatha Christie memorable is that her vocabulary has endured. The words she uses are clear. They're not too high
Yeah,
concept. They
yeah,
stick to they're understandable. It's
yeah,
clearly read and can be shared. I would say Blood Feud is a really easy read. Like
yeah.
100%, one of the differences between a good writer and an okay writer is I can just read a page and I'm not feeling like I'm not
Yeah.
marching through snow to read what they've written.
Man, we're hitting, and for everybody listening, we did not pre-script this or anything, but we are hitting everything I would love to talk about, meaning how I wrote it was to be accessible.
Hmm.
Hey, guys, I said I love Stephen King. I got, 50 of his books that I have read. I devour him. I'm actually reading one called Revival right now, which I'm really enjoying. And I love how he tells a story. He's great because I think it's accessible and he'll make his own words up, but you get him. So I love
Hmm.
him. But then here would be an example. I also love books by a guy named Eric Larson.
Hmm.
Devil in
Yes.
the White City.
Hmm.
Uh, I've got a handful of his up here too, but he is historical
Hmm.
nonfiction. So he'll take
Yes.
a event that happened and then really research the hell out of it in detail.
Hmm.
My argument is, dude, you need a thesaurus to read his book. And I mean, almost every page, there's 5 words that I do not, I've never heard of it. I don't know it. I got to go look it up. And then I still don't remember it, but I get it. It was the right use. But it's arduous to then go through
Hmm.
that. So because of that experience, again, yes, I did not make this that I'm going to use really big words that you don't know to try to make me look smarter than you. I wanted to make it come across. And hey, the guy I've also studied a lot because I think is, how you say most interesting man in the world.
Hmm.
Hey, Ernest Hemingway in
Oh.
his time, right? And I have gone to his place in Key West. I have sat at
Hmm.
the table he sat at in Paris.
Oh
And
wait, quick question. Where is that? Because my wife and I are going to Paris in September, and
I will get it to you offline. It's a
thank you.
restaurant where they all met, and now I do not remember the name of the restaurant, but I will get it for you. I even have a photo of it. I'll send it to you. But here's the thing, he was a boxer, he was
Hmm.
a fisherman, he was a hunter,
Hmm.
he was in
Hmm.
war. He did the stuff.
Hmm.
But what he said was, don't use a word that you don't need to use. Like cut it all, cut it and be concise,
Hmm.
sharp,
Hmm.
move, right? And he still there was still an art to
Yes.
everything he did. Like every year I read Old Man and the Sea once a year just to go through it. And it's it I forget, it's either he won the Nobel Prize or the Pulitzer for it, and it's just, yet it's so short and so
Hmm.
fast. It's the ultimate reminder. I don't need to impress you with some, yeah, a joke would be like some sacrimonious word that I don't know what it means and then use it. And to be honest, guys, I'm still a simple guy and I'm not that smart. So I would have had to have looked it up, and I'm not going to spend my time while I write, ooh, what's a better word here? Choice, right? So again, yeah, I tried to keep it raw and real. And I think that is a great point that you picked that out. Where, yeah, imagine now I'm using these words, they're so big, it keeps stopping you from the
Hmm.
story. So yeah,
Hmm.
don't put hurdles in the way of the race, right? Like I
Hmm.
wanted you to rip through it and finish. So
Hmm.
yeah, so
One
yeah, great point.
one other point from Blood Feuds I want to kind of sit on for a second. You do a great job of before a fight scene, like comparing how these two fighters are getting ready for it.
Yeah.
And how much of that your coach, you have fought, you have trained competitors, how much of that was just, okay, this is what their particular styles, this guy has this style, that guy has that style, or was it simply I we need to have them like preload for this?
I would say it's so interesting you ask that. In particular, the Central Park showdown in that ends part one. I wanted people to feel it that remember one as they're walking towards one another. And I think you even cited, remember, it was like it's almost they could feel, hey, each guy
Hmm.
knows what the other guy knows. Hey, this is serious. This isn't gonna be easy.
Hmm.
And having prepared UFC fighters,
I
people
also love
have
that
no.
they're excited. They're excited to it's they want to
Yeah, they
they're
want that.
ready
Like,
for the fight.
yeah, it's the showdown, and they want to test themselves, right? Like
Hmm.
that's why they did in the first place. Is you remember, like, hey, the guy could have shot the guy from 1,000 yards, but that's not the way you do it with another when you recognize another dog that's the same breed, right?
Hmm.
And we all want this test, or we all have this. I think most of us have that arch enemy, but it's in our own minds. We're always
Hmm.
competing against that person. But yeah, I wanted to show that it's not like, ooh, we just show up and now we start fighting. Each one gave each other the time for a warm up. But yet, how did each guy get loose? It told you something. Then, hey, when it started and it was on,
Hmm.
there's no more small talk. This is life or death. And I
Hmm.
wanted everybody to feel that there is that part. Remember, there's a moment in that fight with Lee that he knows if I end up on my back here, it's over. And I
Hmm.
cannot allow that. And I have felt that feeling in my life and in competition so many times. I wanted everybody to feel that. But then the brutality of
Hmm.
what another man can do to another man when he knows what to do. And when it is, we're not here to knock them out and then leave them. This
Hmm.
is to the end. And both guys understood that, right? So all of that was one of the most courageous chapters I had to write. And remember, I kept breaking it down by
You
time,
did. It was
saying,
so good. The time element
yeah.
really
Well,
brings home the
and I
real
think that's
time moments.
think that was like the real fighting that I've been at. Like, guys, for everybody listening, I've cornered 100 UFC fights probably over the last 25 years. With Jim Miller, he's fought 46 times alone, right? And uh, it was when you watch a fight, man, your eyes are darting from the action to the clock, the action to the clock. Hey, 1 minute left, or hey, now we got this, or hey, this has to happen. And I wanted everybody to feel that urgency, that pacing. But also, here's what's interesting. And if you notice, though, from start to finish, I also wanted the reader to understand a real fight they don't fight for 40 minutes. A
Yeah.
real fight is real fast. Like, remember, when you really go through the
Hmm.
whole thing, it's not very long. And that
Yes.
is the true story. Like, people get knocked out and damaged and hurt real fast. Like it is, we're not going to go fight for 30 minutes in the
Hmm.
backyard and everybody's okay and shaking hands. So I also wanted to give that element, but slow it down enough. Take
Hmm.
that small few minute span, but slow it down to the seconds so you feel it.
Hmm.
So it was yeah, that one was a scary one. So I had a English teacher at the high school where I coach, and she read it and she said, she goes, damn, coach, I never saw that one coming. She said, bravo. Right. And but it gave me confidence again that here's a
Hmm.
female that really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
There have been a number of women that have read it and just loved it. And,
Hmm.
and one of them said, because I was afraid, I said, wow, you really like that? She goes, hey, girls love bad guys, man, or they love these nasty heroes. So I was like, wow, I think I have something here. It
Hmm.
gave me more confidence. So all of that has happened within, the span of the last few weeks. And now with the book releasing, I just hope people, if everybody has the same reaction you have, something's going to happen, right?
I sincerely hope so. I'm definitely promoting it. Martin, one of the last questions I like to ask guests is if you have a writing routine, and if so, what does it look like? And with you, I'm very curious because when I decided to get serious about my writing was when a friend challenged me, you keep a pretty regimented gym routine, but you
Yeah.
don't apply that same discipline to your writing, and it
Yeah.
shows. And I'm like, good point. So that's when I changed my style. But I'm curious because you have such a specific sports performance background. Does that translate at all into your writing, or do you take a more relaxed approach to the way you write?
I would say the discipline of writing and the craft of writing and testing yourself. So, hey, I have a number of books on my shelf right there too, all about writing. And I love reading those. And I love to hear writers and what they've actually written about writing. I think those are always helpful. I had to stay so disciplined for so long because I had to have articles that were due every week.
Hmm.
I had blogs that were due every week.
Gotta
I
feed the
had
content machine.
Yeah, I was on these Q&A boards that I was writing all the time. So in terms of those, I was super disciplined, and a lot of those eventually got compiled into books. But what I would say is when I did this thriller one, I would say you could definitely make, you're going to like this, the comparison of fitness, but for the wrong way. So a lot of people, they jump into fitness and then they
Hmm.
go gung ho. And for like 3 or 4 months, they're going every day and they're on fire and they're unstoppable and they're diving in and they're living the life. And then they take a little time off and then it's gone. Now, what I will say is it's kind of what I did. So when I started, as soon as I
Hmm.
started Blood Feud, I
Hmm.
was a maniac. I did not stop. I was writing every day. It was all I could think about. At night, when I would go to bed, I would say, "Oh my gosh, it's coming out great. I can't wait to see where it goes next. Where's it going to go?" And then the muse would hit me and the antenna was up and there would be more ideas and it would go. And I would write more and I would write more and I would write more. But for everybody listening, then when you have this manuscript, and then you're turning it in and then now it's all about editing the same stuff
Hmm.
and then answering questions about the same stuff and then now you're trying to design the cover or now you're trying to get reviews or now you're trying to get it out there and that's now becoming a full-time
Hmm.
thing
Yes.
that I will say I haven't been writing, but book two I
Yeah.
then dove into and wrote two, but right now I would say I'm still writing articles and blogs for things I have to do.
Hmm.
I wish I could just be sitting and writing book three right now, but it's almost there's so much work that
Yes.
happens now. For instance, this like
Hmm.
I gotta do podcasts. We gotta do things that so what I would say is once I dive in, it's very scary for me because I know when I go in, I'm going all in and
Hmm.
it's all I'm gonna do. But I am not. I always am jealous. I say of like a guy like Stephen King when I've seen interviews that like, man, he sits down to the same typewriter every day,
Hmm.
and he's gonna have 5 to 10,000 words, whether they're good or not. And hey, to be honest, that's how you bang out 100 novels like he has.
But to
Where
your credit, if what works for you is sitting down and just writing the book, that's awesome.
yeah, but here's what I would say. Hopefully, some listeners buy it, and it because I haven't even. I've never, so if I met them and they said, "Hey, what do you do?" I don't say I'm a writer, right? Like that would be down the list a little bit. So I wouldn't,
Hmm.
whereas like Stephen King, what do you do? I'm a writer. Like
Yeah.
that's what he does. Me, there's a lot of other things that
Most
have always,
interesting man in the world.
yeah, that have always taken precedence that but I would love to be able to be more dedicated to it. But I think that can only
Hmm.
happen when
Yes.
it's really rolling and you're going and then you can be that.
Hmm.
So if you ask me, so say I envision this Blood Feud series, there's five. I envision
Hmm.
five. I've got the bones. I see it mapped.
Five
Hey,
also just works with the name Blood Feud. I don't know why. Like
huh,
just the title Blood Feud,
yeah,
five
yeah, I
installments.
can I can see it now. Hey, if it really goes big, maybe we make it 10 and just stretch it
Love
out.
it.
But the whole thing is, imagine it's like, hey, now it's really rolling, it's going. The fans of this genre like it and they're waiting for the next one. If I could say, hey, I can just dedicate myself to the craft and just writing, I would love it. But I
Hmm.
think that's the challenge for every
Hmm.
writer, and the ones that I've known and I've met, that man, so few ever get to
Hmm.
level that, like you've mentioned some of the, the Brad Thors, or, or the Greg Hurwitzes, or the, again, the Kings and the
Hmm.
Baldaccis. Like, and they've probably got a team of 80 people right there
Yeah.
helping do it all too, because I read their acknowledgments. But the whole thing is, but when you're a one-man show and you're just starting out, uh, yeah, with 4 kids and 2 in college, I can't just sit and just write all day,
Yes.
and see what happens. But I would
Well,
love
but I think
to
that
do
makes
it.
it more interesting. Like, I hats off to anyone that is a full-time writer and that's what they do. That's really awesome to have your job be writing. But having the other things in your life, I think contributes to having an interesting stories to tell. I always think of Theodore Roosevelt as like my paragon of all that is as man.
I'm gonna have to grab more books off my shelf over there. Like, he is my favorite. I've got, multiple biographies. Yeah, like, he is, you should check one out. I have it up there. It's called The River of Doubt. I
Ooh,
gotta read it.
I
Like,
will.
hang on, I'm gonna show it. And I don't know if that's good etiquette to show other people's books,
Hey,
but
we recommend all books on this
yeah,
show.
without, well, meaning when you're trying to pub your own. But so River of Doubt,
Hmm.
uh, it is Roosevelt's story, absolutely unbelievable, of how he goes to like the Amazon and maps out the Amazon, and it's like, and how close he is to death and everything else. So he is my favorite president. I just read one. It's called the Final Scrum, or Saving the Scrum, and it was all about how he was kind of instrumental in saving American football, which was
Ooh.
really way more violent and way crazy and really hurting all these people. But he was so into physical conditioning and
Uh-huh.
sport and everything else. So somebody just recently gave me too. But yeah, this one,
River of
like,
Doubt.
oh my gosh, a must. And I, that is another whole genre I love, is actually like the true adventure stories, everything
Hmm.
from Shackleton to, I just read David Graham's The Wager, which is,
Ooh.
another, because I like him a lot too. He's done Lost City of Z. I have them all up
I've
there.
read Lost City of Z. I need to get The Wager because
Uh,
I enjoyed Lost City of Z so much
Wager is
that
really fast. It keeps it pretty short. It's, as much detail, but it's like a Shackleton story that you never heard of, and you're like, oh my gosh, how did I never hear this? Incredible, like, just incredible. I guess I like these stories of endurance. I love
hmm.
these stories of that. When I read it, I say, could I have
Hmm.
survived it? Right? Could I
Yes.
have done it? And that you actually leave saying, I don't know, but, even who I am, I can't picture myself dying or giving up, but I also can't picture myself 2 years on the ice eating rotten penguin meat to stay alive. And, I don't know if I could do it, but do you see how, by going
Hmm.
through that vicariously through those stories, same deal. Like, I'll give you a little, he's got bugs crawling all under his skin, or
Oh.
under it,
Ooh.
that they've laid their eggs under his skin, and he's like
Oh.
almost dying or going to lose his limbs. And, somehow eventually survives it. But like, I would have been like, guys, get me out of here. I probably would have said, guys, we've done enough. Can we turn this thing around? Or, can we get me to a doctor? But these were like, this type of guy
Hmm.
didn't do it until they got far enough. So there's a river, look it up. So there's a river named after him. It's like Roosevelt
Oh.
in the Amazon, that he was the first one to ever chart. It's nuts. And it was because he was bored because he had lost an election. So what do I do next?
Yes.
Yeah, I guess I'll do that. Right.
Well, but and he point I was making is he's not a professional writer. Like he wrote a lot of books and he
Yep.
did a lot of things, but he had other jobs. And having those other things and writing, I think creates an interesting symbiotic relationship for
Well, it's
creativity.
a Hemingway thing. It's the most
Hmm.
interesting guy. And hey, I love that you're saying it. I went to San Antonio recently and sat at the bar. It's almost like a Roosevelt memorial to him.
Ooh.
That's where they would always meet when with the Rough Riders, and then they would leave to go battle. And they have all this stuff in there. It just reminds you of the story and who these guys were. And it's, you almost dream to have done something so great in your
Hmm.
lifetime that people will remember you like that. And he did carve that spot. Hey, from the national park systems to all this stuff. So anybody that doesn't know about Roosevelt, you gotta look that dude up, right? And, and just he brought boxing and jujitsu into the White House. So he loved fighting. He wasn't a physical specimen. Grew up with asthma. That's what really made him train himself so hard. And yeah, just, you can't believe all the things, and then, he was this big game hunter that hunted like, elephants and lions in Africa, just unreal. But yeah, so it's funny. Hey, we've had a lot of, it's kind of funny. Every little thing you've said, this office is kind of tiny, and I've got something cool for every one of those things. So I am, and I didn't even show you my chainsaw carvings that, because I also do that on the side too. So we got a lot of, yeah.
Martin, you will definitely be on the show again.
Yeah, we might have to do another one.
You,
If anybody listening liked it and you want more, you got to tell Terrence, bring this guy back.
I'm going to tell people again, order Blood Feud, Raising Cain. Fantastic book. Martin, where can people go to learn more about you and your work?
Hey, probably the best stuff on social media. I am the Martin Rooney on Instagram. If you want to see my adventures, so you do see that it's real. That's where I use a lot. I'm also on LinkedIn and Facebook. You can find it. One of my companies is Training for Warriors. So
Mhm.
you can see trainingforwarriors.com. And I didn't even mention, I am also a chancellor of an exercise science university called Lionel University.
Oh,
And if
that's so
anybody's listening
cool.
and they're interested in fitness degrees, you can check that out as well. So yeah, yeah. Again, you see the list. It's yeah. I also have not called myself chancellor before either, but that is a
Chancellor
role,
Rooney.
yeah, that I serve. Yeah, I might have to start doing that if I get famous enough as a writer. But all of these hats, what maybe it shows, guys, for everybody listening, if you say, hey, is all that stuff real? The answer is yes. It just means I'm getting old. But also, what I try to use it as inspiration is, hey, we all have the same 24
Yeah.
hours. You can do some pretty incredible things with it. You could write you could read enough to write a book. You could study enough to get a degree. You could travel enough to see the world. You could get a piece of wood and chainsaw carve it long enough till you make something cool. But if you do none of those things,
Hmm.
then none of those things happen. And like you said, whether it's, my inspirations, yeah, again, it's, I look at a Teddy Roosevelt and I feel like I didn't do anything, right? And
Yeah.
or I think about the Flash and I say I can always run faster. So all of those. Hopefully, this was inspiring for everybody, because I will say, hey, having done this, if this is a dream of yours, the only thing stopping you is you, because you
Hmm.
didn't. Yeah. Don't complain about the work you didn't do, that then the book you didn't write, right? So yeah, let that be a great lesson too.
That's awesome. Martin, I will link everything in the show notes. Thanks again for coming on the show.
My pleasure.